Ryan Conwell is the most consistent shooter in the country. Let's lock in and find out why.
You are Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Your daily podcast on the future stars of the NBA. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NBA Draft podcast with no ceilings. Thanks for helping the Locked On Network become the #1 sports podcast. What an accomplishment. #1. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if that $5 bet hits, you'll win $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. My name's Albert Ghim, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, PhD in the pick and roll and homemade pizzas, Professor Corey Tulaba. Corey, you have had a very interesting couple of weeks, going to MSG all the time. This weekend, you'll be in the building once again. Talk to us about, number one, the excitement of being able to go to MSG this often and what you're expecting to see, because you've got a kind of a Battle of the Titans coming up this weekend, right? A very good matchup you're going to get to see in person. What are you excited to see with that game specifically?
Yeah, I mean, Illinois has a lot of dudes on that team, a lot of prospects. So they're also like one of my favorite teams to watch in the country just because of their play style. So I'm excited to see them at the Garden. UConn fans are very passionate, and they definitely travel to MSG. One of the loudest that I've ever heard MSG was when they played Gonzaga last year. And I'm talking Knicks games, Ranger games, whatever, St. John's, like the UConn fans went crazy. So that environment's really exciting. Taris Reed is really exciting prospect on the UConn side. I mean, I know we have a potential lottery guy on UConn. I'm not sure. I know he's nearing return. I'm not sure if he's going to be available. I would say no, but I know he's getting close, so you never know. So it's going to be a fun game, and it's an afternoon game. So, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my French dip because typically they only open that shop up for the night game. So it's a tough one, but I might just save room and go find some good eats around New York City for after the game.
Yeah, you really are the king of the French dip. You love a dip sandwich. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I respect it.
Yeah.
I respect it. I really do. It's funny, Corey, that you mentioned the potential lottery pick. I didn't know you had changed your tune on Alex Caravan that much.
Guys balling this year. Shout out Maxwell.
But we're not talking UConn today. We're not talking Illinois today. We're talking Ryan Conwell. I mean, a guy that I don't know. I don't know if I had it on my bingo board that we'd be talking about him this early in the season, but here we are. And a very interesting player. So, Corey, if you will, let's get into the lab. Give us some of the essentials on Ryan Conwell.
Okay, so Ryan Conwell is a senior guard from Louisville, listed at 6'4", 215. So we're talking a strong dude. Couldn't find wingspan. He will be 22 on draft night. He's got a June 15th birthday, so he'll just have turned 22, which is pretty young for a senior, conversely. And, he's not a true senior, but like a guy like Yaxel is going to be almost 24 years old on draft night. So, the age isn't killer here. He's a lefty. We like our lefties. And he's well-traveled because this dude has played for a different college team every year of his college career. He's a guy I got to see last year in the Big East tournament at Xavier. Well-traveled man. So these are stats through 6 games in 26.3 minutes per game, likely to change. He is averaging 18.2 points in 26 minutes per game, 4.8 rebounds, 1.8 assists to 1 turnover, 1.5 steals, has not registered a block yet. Shooting 45, 42.6, 80, shooting split. So that's a 59.4 effective field goal, 64 true shooting, BPM of 9.7.
I mean, it's nice. You know,
Yeah,
reading off the
lots to
stats
like.
like that. Yeah, there's a lot to like. And Corey, a very interesting player, like a really interesting journey, playing for a different team every season. South Florida, Indiana State, Xavier, and now Louisville. So as you mentioned, well-traveled, right? But there are some interesting through lines that we're going to talk about when it comes to his college journey and the type of player that he is. And I'm excited to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of his game because Corey, I think ultimately the reason why we're doing this pod about him is because I think we believe he can be an NBA rotation player. And there's a very clear skill set that he's going to be bringing into the league. Before, I bury all this stuff, let's get it over to you, Corey. Talk to us about his offensive game.
Well, you have to start with the shooting here. We loved starting with shooting because we love shooters, and we love a lefty shooter, and he's lights out. So this is a guy who, this season is shooting 42.6% from the 3-point line. And, this is a dude who, if you leave him open, just start running the other way. He's 48.6% on catch and shoot attempts, 42.9% guarded, which is crazy number, and then 57.1% unguarded. Now that's 6 games, right? This year, it's early, but he's just not missing if you leave him alone for a second. On dribble jumpers, he's been 33.3%. So, not as great off the dribble as he is off the catch. He's not necessarily a self-creator, but capable for sure. Doesn't have a mid-range game, which is interesting. Last season, he was only 9 for 29 on runners and floaters. I think he's taken 1 mid-range shot this year. So, he is kind of a rim and threes guy, which is, very analytical in the modern age. So I do want to see where he ends up with his float game, the runners by the end of this year, because I do think he's going to need some counters. Like, guys are going to try their hardest to hard close, run him off the line. And I want to see because we know he's going to, if you leave him open, we know it's going in. So guys are going to rush out to him. So what can he do when he can't get all the way to the rim and he has to play in that in between a little bit? That's kind of where I want to see him, but the shooting is so devastating that, off movement, pick and pop. If he's going to self-create, it's usually like 2 or 3 dribbles, like doesn't have the craziest handle. Kind of reminds me a little bit when he's like self-creating of like the football player who comes to the pickup game, cause he's like a strong, stocky dude. Maybe not as like,
as rough around the edges.
Yeah. Like he's going to be a professional basketball player. Like, he could still dribble, but as far as like high level guys, he's that kind of guy as far as a self creator. But really, really great off the catch.
You being a Giants fan, I just imagine like Cam Scatterbo with the ball in his hands, just trying to run people over and like can barely keep the ball in front of him. Okay, no, Corey, I love everything that you said. I want to add some notes. My first note on him is like he's kind of this like tough power guard. Yes. How I put him. Not a point guard, not like your traditional shooting guard, even, but like a power guard. Like really strong, and he, doesn't have the tightest handle, but he's got some shift to him, Corey. Like, and I think part of it is because like he's like of a stockier kind of like fire hydrant type of build. So he's got like a really strong center of gravity. And so like he can kind of switch directions on you a little bit and then use his strength to kind of get going where he wants to get going. But overall, like this isn't Kyrie Irving or Rod Strickland. Like, he's got some limitations, I think, with that. But the outside jumper, like 3 straight seasons over 40% from 3. And over 7 attempts per game, all 3 seasons that he's done that. So I wrote in my notes, he's a bona fide shooter. Like that's just, you write that in pen, he's going to be able to do that. And that's great. Bit of a ground bound athlete,
Yes.
Real bounce to talk about at all.
Below the rim finisher was in my notes.
Yep. I wrote finishing at the rim is tough with no real burst or bounce. And also, like his numbers right now at the rim are not so great either. But the thing that you'll like about him, though, is the fact that number one, he's strong, he plays hard, and Although his offensive game is simple, Corey, I like that he plays his role. And he is very intentional about taking highly efficient shots, and he'll move the ball. He's not, he's not going to be your point guard, but I think he moves the ball well. Good connector type of
Yep.
passer.
Never turns it over.
Yeah, he never turns it over. So if you're like, okay, you're thinking about like a, supporting role player, a guy who's going to shoot the lights out, is not going to turn the ball over, and also has a strong, stocky type of build, who, will play physically. I mean, that's enough to be a rotation player in my mind, Corey. And especially if he's going to be shooting over 40% on over 7 attempts per game. And that's not 100%. It's 7 attempts per game that he's been doing over the last 3 seasons. That is serious volume at over 40%. And to get even more specifically, Corey, the last 3 seasons, his sophomore season, he was 40% from 3 on 7.1 attempts. His junior season for Xavier, 41.3%, 7.1 attempts. And then this year so far, 42.6% on 7.8%. So once again, the volume is real. The efficiency is real. And he's going to have...
The consistency is real.
Exactly. The consistency is real. There's real gravity there. You cannot ignore him outside. If you leave him open, he's going to hit it. And you mentioned 57.1% on unguarded, 42.9 on guarded catch and shoot jumpers, 48.6 overall on catch and shoot jumper. Just a really deadly, lethal type of shooter. Now it's just, as you mentioned, what does everything else look like? But in my mind, Corey, like, his floor is still dynamic because he shoots it so well, and he's so strong and can move the ball well. So I don't know what that looks like, and I don't want to go into comps yet, but just overall, Corey, as simple as his game may be, sometimes that's kind of perfect for what teams might be looking for, maybe late in the first, early in the second, or whatever.
Yeah, because you know what you're getting.
Right.
There's no mystery. Like, the shots are going to go in if he gets them off. And he can get them off. He's got a quick release. He's got good range. It's just, to me, it's like, this year I really want to see, like, can you really maybe take a jump in your rim finishing? Because, you mentioned, like, the numbers aren't great. Last year, he was 56% overall and just 51% in the half court. This year, it's kind of reversed so far. He's 50% overall and 61.5% in the half court. Now, the half court attempts there's only been 13 this year, so it's not like super high volume. So there's not much we could take away from that. But can he get up to over 60% overall, 58% in the half court, something like that over the course of a year, and really keep that efficiency up? Because he's not a small guard, because he's got the strength. I think his length is probably pretty good too. And 6'4" isn't small, but it's also not wing size. So, like, he's going to have to be efficient in the 2 areas where the shots come from. We know he's going to be efficient behind the arc. Can he be efficient at the rim as well? Maybe the extra spacing, in an NBA court will help that a little bit, but he is ground bound, like we said. But because he's so strong, I wonder if he can, use that strength more adequately and do a better job finishing through contact.
Yeah. There are some serious contrasting factors that go into our evaluation in terms of what we think he's going to be as a finisher, because Corey, like, he's very ground bound, like very, very much so, almost like a siege tank or something. But then again, like, because he's so strong, maybe that goes to, and also we don't really know his length, but from the eye test, I feel like his length looks pretty good too. So it's just like, if he can learn to leverage that strength and length into creating advantages for himself, even though he's ground bound, who knows, right? Type of situation. But I think overall, Corey, my overall takeaway with him is that I like that he's a highly efficient player who doesn't try to do too much and is very comfortable in his role. And I think that alone can be super valuable to an NBA team, because you never have to worry about him going like on a bender and like freaking out and like suddenly dribbling the air out of the ball and like doing some sort of Kyrie impression. You're not going to see that from Ryan Conwell. He's going to go to the corners. He's going to be running off screens. He's going to, he's going to be additive and supportive to your main guy. And I think that's very, very valuable.
Additive is good.
Yeah. NBA teams are going to feel that. They're going to see that and be like, sign me up for this kid. Like, if he's going to be this good of a shooter and he's going to make our team better, what are we even talking about? So I think overall with the offensive game of Ryan Conwell, although there weren't too many layers for us to break down, I think we're both landing in a place where his shooting creates so much gravity that NBA teams are going to be interested, is I think where we're landing. And with that being said, he's got another part of his game, his defense, and we'll get into that defense right after this break. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the bag drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. This fan bag, we're talking about player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you'll actually want. We love that it's not just food, but you can order snacks. Maybe you're on a health grind. You can order some carrot sticks, some watermelon, some zero sugar soda, and you're in a great spot. Whatever you might need, DoorDash has you covered for late night highlights, last minute watch parties, and double OT fuel up. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off up to $10 a day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. All right. We are back. Thanks, DoorDash.
We're in our bag.
We're in our bag all season long. We're talking about Ryan Conwell, the defender. Corey,
Yes.
before I send it to you, I would just want to hit some of my highlights because I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I didn't have a ton of notes here, right? But I had some, okay? The first thing that stuck out to me, Corey, I think he's a good communicator. When I was watching film, you can see him calling out screens. You can see him, right? You can hear him calling out screens. You can see him talking to his teammates. There's communication happening on the floor, and he's a big part of that. And I think that's something that I really wanted to highlight because I saw it so many times. Him grabbing guys, talking about, hey, maybe they missed something. Maybe there was some miscommunication. Him calling that out and being a communicator on the floor. I saw it so much that I had to put it in my notes. Head on a swivel. I thought there were some good instincts he showed in the passing lanes. I think the biggest thing for me, the strength and buy-in from him will be important due to his lack of size. He does not have plus size. He's not a very tall guy. I also don't think he's a very good lateral mover. I think he's okay. Overall, there are going to be question marks about his defense. But I think the effort and the communication and the buy-in could potentially cover all of that. And you're just going to look at him as a guy who, once again, will be additive to you defensively as well. A guy who's going to buy in, who's going to be communicating well, who's going to try really hard. And although he may have some limitations, you're going to get the effort from him all the time. Is kind of why I walked away liking him as a defender, was my analysis of Ryan Conwell.
Yeah, so I don't think he has because he's got a similar frame to somebody like Chase Ross, who's a monster defender, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's the same lateral mover like you mentioned, but I don't think he's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and I love the buy-in. I love the effort. I love the work rate. I think he gets low and he gets wide, and I think he gets in guys' shirts. He's, we talked about Kingston Fleming's sometime earlier in the week. Sometimes we'd like to see him be a little more aggressive, guarding the ball instead of letting guys force him into a decision. Being the one to I am the one who knocks, and really get up in a guy's shirt and junk them up. Right. I think that Conwell has shown that he can do that. And sometimes when you're not the best mover, getting up into somebody and kind of playing on their hip and being able to force them to a direction, especially to, their weak hand, allows you to dictate and make up for any kind of like athletic limitations that you might have. And especially when he's so strong that, you know, guys aren't going to be able to just kind of like dip a shoulder and like move him easily. Like he's a big, strong dude. So I like that. I kind of like the defense from that aspect. You mentioned like the talking and stuff. A lot of that is because he's so good positionally. Like a lot of young guys will, when their man is like, you know, cutting down the middle of the floor and like shooting out to the weak side, they'll like chase the man and turn their back to the ball. He like keeps his back flat so he can have his head on a swivel and see the ball and the man.
Right.
And that, you know, helps keep rotations on point, prevents scrambles, because, you know, when we talk about like his athletic limitations, like he doesn't have like this innate like quick twitch sprint quickness. But that also means he's not super out of control. So when he closes out, he can get choppy feet, high hands, and not like, and kind of close short instead of closing long and taking guys out of the play. So there's like a lot of stuff fundamentally that he does well, I think, that kind of makes up for like any lack of like elite quickness. But with the way that he uses his technique and I thought his strength, and his length even on closeouts, I think that he has an opportunity to guard at the next level. Yeah. And is he Lou Dort? No. But if he can guard at the next level and he can knock down threes, he's got a shot.
Yeah. I think when it comes to the size discussion, that'll just lead to like, oh, can he guard multiple positions? He probably won't be able to guard like threes. But like, once again, like the fire hydrant build to him, I think, is such an advantage. And also the way that he plays aggressively, as you mentioned, getting in your shirt, all that stuff. I also want to say, like, to your point, Corey, about like him positioning well and all that stuff. Like, obviously, me as a Knicks fan, I get to watch my Knicks all the time. And a guy who's been doing that so well for the Knicks this season is Mikal Bridges. He's playing out of his mind. Mikal Bridges is having, I think, maybe the best season of his career right now. And it's kind of going under the radar right now because no one's talking about it. I get it. But what he's doing on the defensive end of the ball, he's averaging over 2 steals a game and over a block per game. But a lot of that is positioning stuff. Like, he is locked in. He's making all the right rotations. He's reading everything backside really well, using his length and his instincts to cover stuff and to be there, to be in the right spots and to close out well. He's doing all the little nitty-gritty details on defense, and he's like taking advantage of that and playmaking on defense. And I think Ryan Conwell, like, he's got a little bit of that too, Corey, with the Mikal Bridges, where obviously he doesn't have like the size and length that Mikal does, but like the reading of the game is there, and you see that on film, and that's been really encouraging. So I'm with you, Corey. I think we've got a really interesting defensive player here that I think is going to be able to hold his own. And if we combine that with his kind of, niche role on offense, I think we got a rotation guy. And I think, with that in mind, we're going to have some comps of some other rotation guys who can do some of the similar things. And we'll get into those comps right after this break. The NBA is back in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you kind of just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So that means you make your first $5 bet, and if that bet hits, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Corey, we are back. And we're doing comps. I'm going to be honest with you. This was a hard one for me, actually, because him being like this good of a shooter, but also being like on the smaller size, made it kind of tricky for me in finding a lot of guys that were like of this type of build. But so, Corey, if you can share your comps first, and then I'll kind of try to build off of that.
Okay. So my low end comp, and this is a guy who had a moment, exchanged, I think like shoes and jerseys with Steph Curry, got a shot with the Lakers, now kind of bouncing around the G League, I believe, is Quincy Oliveri, which I same played it one of his stops as well, so played a similar role on that Xavier team. That was kind of my low end, where it's like, all right, the finishing doesn't get better, maybe not super quick enough to guard guys, and like the shot's not enough, and he's just a guy who bounced around the G League. That's that outcome, maybe Quincy Oliveri. Now he's got, I think, like 15, 20 pounds on Oliveri, so that certainly helps Conwell's chances, I think, a little bit more. So my higher end comp, and I think maybe even the situation that they're in the sharing a dynamic backcourt partner could be similar in maybe a lefty version of Emmanuel Quickley, who played next to Tyrese Maxey in college, and also Ashton Higgins, which, we have an award for now. But if he can kind of do the Quickley thing, I think that could be a higher end outcome. Now, Quickley has like an incredible float game.
Yeah.
And I think he's quicker. Yeah. But, Quickley wasn't nearly as strong as Conwell, so they're not like exactly the same. But when you think of like outside shooters first, and who knows, like Quickley got to show a lot more off the bounce in the NBA than he did in college. Yeah. Where he was used running off floppy actions and was a catch and shoot guy, again playing off of Ashton Higgins, which, I mean, Maxey was a big time, running those actions too. So maybe there's like a little bit more off the dribble game, or like maybe ball screen actions, and then maybe that floater game, that mid-range game that he can use as a counter, because Quickley's not an above the rim player either. And so maybe you play with like a big screen setter who's like a lob threat, and you can trick guys into playing the cat and mouse with that float game and opening up some of those alley-oop like Quickley does, and that could be a new wrinkle to his game that we see more of at the next level.
I think the Quickley one's really interesting, Corey. A guy who got over $100 million, right, from the Raptors. I think it was 120, or I don't remember.
It was a lot.
Big contract. But who was really, I feel, obviously I'm biased as a Knick fan. I liked him as a Knick. When we drafted him, we weren't sure what type of player we were going to get, and he really grew and developed it during his time as a Knick. And as you mentioned, like got really good at the floater, and knows something that Knick fans really liked about him. But okay, so I know I had trouble with these comps, but one of my comps I like a lot, and I think if he has this career, I think that's a win. But the first guy I'm going to say, he actually doesn't play like him at all, but just aesthetically reminded me of him. And I think it's the headband and like the build. He reminded me of Josh Selby.
Okay. Wasn't expecting that.
No, I'm sorry. Completely different games. I'm not comping the players in terms of how they played. Just like aesthetically, like he's got this like, stocky build with the headband, whatever. Just I kept thinking of Josh Selby, but Josh Selby could dunk really well. Explosive guy. But okay, the ultimate comp that I landed on, Corey, a guy who doesn't play anymore, but I feel like if Conwell has his career, huge win for him. Wesley Matthews was my guy, Corey.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you think about the Wes Matthews, like he was a shooter all his career, played on a lot of great teams, staunch defender, like maybe never was like, exactly. Was never like a stopper though, defender, but just a good, solid defender.
Yeah, gritty.
Strong, gritty, physical, reliable outside shooter for years, had that gravity. I'm thinking if Ryan Conwell can emulate that and have a Wesley Matthews career, huge win for him. And I think very similar in terms of, and like height-wise, too, they were similar. So Wesley Matthews.
I like that one. Makes me
Right.
fun.
But Corey, right? Like if
Yeah.
I were to tell you, hey, Ryan Conwell's going to be Wesley Matthews, sign me up. I'm spending the 28th pick for Wesley Matthews
Oh,
today.
no
No
doubt.
problem. Yeah.
No, you're getting Wesley Matthews. I mean, you'd redraft him. He's one of the 14 best players in that draft. I'm assuming.
Exactly.
You know, I'd have to look at who was in that draft, but he had a great career. He played for a long time, and he even managed to come back from when he tear his Achilles, right?
Yep.
And he even still managed to come back. So
Right.
I like that call out.
Yeah.
Let's get a blend of Wesley Matthews and Emmanuel Quickly and call it a day.
That's a good player, though, Corey. And I think our conclusion is this. I think we believe Ryan Conwell, although he has some limitations on both ends of the floor, we think he's going to be a good NBA player. And that's generally what happens when you have an elite skill. And he is a lights out shooter. Our cold open today is that he's the most consistent shooter, but it makes sense. 3 straight years of over 40% from three on over 7 attempts. That's a good shooter right there. And we believe that he's got other skills as well to make him successful in the NBA. But guys, before we wrap, we just want to thank you once again for making us your first listen of the day and for helping the Locked On Podcast Network become the #1 sports podcast network. Obviously, with all the stuff going on, we've got even more exciting things for you guys. But once again, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for rocking with us as always. And we're excited to keep pushing through this holiday season. But my name's Albert. He's Corey, and we'll talk to you guys soon.